What's going on? Boys, arm yourselves, life stuff. I'm not sure how we're going to organize this one, but we'll try to hit as much as we can. But everything we're discussing today revolves around two interpretations of the same thing. It doesn't matter depression husk core versus it doesn't matter horror beast core. Because I've been thinking a lot about the whole chaos thing lately. And remember, much of what we do isn't necessarily trying to figure out precisely what is, because I don't know how possible that is, but instead, all the different ways one can know the same thing, or different positions from which you can view the same problem. So, from the just existing level, not from the trying to figure things out level, the progression feels not like learning more and getting closer to some kind of enlightenment, but instead recognizing increasingly that existence is the surface of undisturbed water. And you can't really know anything about the water. You can't really do anything about the water. Change the fact that water is, but you can disturb the surface of it. And to elevate is not to know more or to change anything, but rather to enhance your ability to splash the water. And that's weird because you can splash the water. You can improve your ability to splash it more. You can screw with the surface tension of reality in surprising ways to surprising lengths, but you can do it only insofar as you stick to and enhance your role. If you try to splash the water from a different role, it's not going to work. But why is that? If, from this point of view, splashing is all you can do, then why is your role so important? What what cosmically is stopping you from splashing to the same level or greater from a different role? Why can't you go over there and splash with a stick? Why must you stand here and splash with your hand? And that got me thinking. Maybe you don't have to. Maybe you feel you must, or you're limited to what you are and where you are, only because you haven't elevated enough. And this all is coming from the none of this matters perspective, which we don't necessarily align with, but if this turned out to be what is and the way things are for sure, it wouldn't be surprising because it is reasonable. As weird as that is, this is one of a few perspectives that make sense lining up the things we can know, which is the contrast between the depression husk and the horror beast. If this is the way you align your stars, then you could either wither because none of this matters, or you could get freaky because none of this matters. And when I say none of this matters, I mean from your point of view in the universe, you can't really know anything about the water and you can't really do anything about the water. All you can do is splash it if you recognize that there is water at all. That feels very much like a none of this matters position to stand in. The most you can hope to accomplish being progressive levels of reality disturbance. And that line of thinking got me thinking about what it means to elevate in that point of view. The short stories thing I'm writing is becoming more like a novel. And I'm realizing it's like a series of coming of age stories, except the age you are coming into is bastardry. There are three main characters. The youngest character, and the one I haven't fleshed out the most, maybe appropriately, deals with what it means to align oneself, or to put your sights seriously on a goal, with the chaos and contradiction of reality becoming more apparent and affecting you more. Leaving the nest mentally and spiritually, let's say. Does choosing a goal even make sense? The oldest character deals with what it means to try to interpret a situation or a set of beliefs or make decisions according to interpretations when you have all the power you need. It's not a matter of can you do something because you can, but rather what should you be doing, why should you be doing it, and how do you justify it amidst all this chaos and contradiction of the world. The intermediate character and the closest thing to a protagonist differs in that the interpretation and the goal setting are already done. Fortitude is this character's problem. To what lengths are you willing to go to do what needs to be done? You know where you need to be, you know why you need to be there, but the path there is grotesque. And I'm thinking about these things because what is the purpose of splashing water more if you aren't going to learn anything and you aren't going to change anything? Why are you bothering? Well, as with everything, I think it all comes down to ugliness. And in this novel or series of stories, typically with power comes physical deformity, mirroring emotional deformity. So if you are a toddler, you can't comprehend how badly an adult can hurt you, even if you're in the middle of being hurt. And as a toddler, if you start trying to conceptualize these things, how powerless you are from your, in time and in physicality and mentally, limited point of view, it warps you. You might not understand all the different ways and reasons you are powerless and can be hurt, but you do come to understand you are so outmatched you can't even make sense of it. The force and the hurt the world can impose on you becomes like a solid cloud. It's formless and you can't touch it, but it can touch you. And I think once you're an adult, individuals versus organizations are similar to toddlers versus adults. An individual might not have the capacity to understand just how badly a group can hurt them until it happens. And once it does happen, that individual can't make sense of it or do anything about it. I mean, you can try, you can maybe do something, but again, it's like a toddler with a pocket knife versus an adult with a lead pipe. You aren't going to win, and even if you did, what then? There's another coming very soon. And lately, we have been working on accepting discomfort, but important to note is that we don't embrace it. Because pain, to reiterate, does not inherently improve you. All it does is hurt and change you. I'm sure 15 years in prison, if we survived, would change us and maybe make us stronger. Big maybe. But it would wound us and warp our souls beyond recognition. And I don't want that to happen. I don't want to experience that. Despite recognizing the effect of pain and trying to accept it, which is, again, distinct from embracing it or seeking it out. And this points to something important about what our souls are no matter what we do. Ultimately, a primary force in our souls is a scared child begging something evil not to hurt it, and getting hurt anyway, but all the same, still begging no matter how many times it gets hurt. And put another way, no matter how strong you get, you still get hurt. Which I think is where, if you go back to the point of view we started with, the depression or the horror diverge. It doesn't matter. Husk rolls over, tries to numb itself out and stop feeling. It doesn't matter. Abomination tries to elevate itself into an inflicting role rather than a receiving role, even though you will always be receiving. Cultivating the ability to make an in-kind donation of discomfort. And we think about what that elevating process looks like. What's interesting about the coincidental paths crossing of the short stories and chaos ideas is ugliness. I love when things resonate, when your existence starts vibrating and you find harmonies where you wouldn't expect to find them. What I'm reading about the chaos stuff, one of many ways to elevate, if you want to call it that, is embracing the disturbing and reprehensible, because it creates disturbance, not just in the world, but also within you. It gets you closer to the founding force. It puts you closer to irrationality. In the stories, cultivating power, we mentioned earlier, coincides not just with physical deformity but also emotional deformity. Doing things, developing the will to do things that make your rational, decent self disgusted with you as a whole. And, of course, everything comes back to Apocalypse Now and, by extension, Heart of Darkness. I watched a snail crawl along the edge of a straight razor. That's my dream. That's my nightmare. Crawling, slithering along the edge of a straight razor and surviving. Elevating by shattering yourself, cutting yourself into pieces, and then not dying. And in the stories, there are levels of one's attunement with their abilities. But the higher you go, the more it seems less like a measure of power and more like a level of dislocation. While the most advanced do literally stop being people, they also stop making sense. And I'm sparing with them because these stories are supposed to be low key horror stories, dealing with fun, supernatural, spooky imagery and scenarios, of course. Yet, on another level, realizing that your characters are not readily classifiable morally, and I hate the concept of the morally gray character because it implies a black and a white, and you can't mix you can't mix those things because much as with race, morality is fake. At least the way we are used to looking at morality. What happens if someone is a saint but only to their countrymen? Would you classify a person as good if they helped addicts stop using and reconnect with their families, but at home beat his wife sometimes? How would you weigh someone's soul if they did many good acts in their life, but only for self interested reasons? It's not black and white, it's not gray, it is what you are programmed to value and how comfortable you can become with deprogramming. Willard and Kurtz. Great comment from a few months ago. Something important but easy to forget or overlook when you consider why Kurtz broke and Willard didn't is Willard was CIA. One way of looking at it might be Kurtz broke because in his mind or his soul there was something to be broken. Willard didn't break because there was never anything solid. It was a gas or a cloud of programming that can move around or give way but never shatter. And we bring all this up in relation to becoming one who splashes, an inflictor, because I think you need to go to hell, right? The difference between a bad person and an awful person or an evil person. You need to slither along the edge of that straight razor and survive. You need to accustom yourself to doing things you find evil. You need to enter that zone that makes it hard to look in the mirror. And peculiar, I think, is that people who classify themselves as good and who other people or whom other people classify as good will daily do the exact things that will make you not want to look in the mirror without a second thought, sleep well at night, and probably be rewarded for. It doesn't matter. Now, I think it does matter, but not in any way we are close to understanding, and maybe we'll ever be able to understand. But if you want the ability to fuck with those people, then you need to earn it, right? You can be a bad person all day, every day. Being a low frequency shit person is very easy, comes naturally to you. You are naturally a shitty person. But to do what you consider, maybe are probably are programmed to consider evil, is very hard. And you've probably been socialized that way because access to evil like that enhances your ability to fuck with other evil people. Sometimes videos come together well, and other times they don't. This is one of those latter instances. Because I don't know what to do with this yet. I know I want the ability to scramble people. Anyone who feels sure and comfortable enough to hurt other people and feel justified doing it. I want the ability to scramble them. But even if I could, that wouldn't change anything. You aren't protecting anybody. There's nobody worth protecting. Every victim is an abuser that just hasn't developed the power to abuse yet. And having a scramble beam isn't going to make you feel any better. Nothing you do or think will ever make you feel good, will make you feel safe, like everything makes sense and everything is okay. That's never going to happen. All you're really accomplishing is developing the ability to do unto others what has been done unto you, and to become a channeler of the misery of reality. And I think one of the reasons it makes me sick, all of this makes me sick, is I don't know what happens when you reach higher levels, but I know what happens when you do nothing. You constantly see what happens when you do nothing. So it feels like the only real option is to see what happens once you develop your splashing abilities. Or the whole chaos thing is really interesting again because it makes a lot of sense even if I don't totally agree with it. Change is the only constant. I hate that this is what reality is, and I really hate people. I don't want anyone as we are now to be happy. And we aren't. We never have been. We never will be. But I don't want people even to have the possibility of forgetting it or pretending otherwise. Because that comes always at the expense of someone else. It's like every illusion of happiness a human can attach themselves to comes at the expense of somebody else, or comes at the suffering of somebody else, rather. And in the end, that person is still unhappy. So you deepened suffering in the world for no reason while justifying your actions or your outlook to yourself morally and playing the victim. I want everybody to be miserable because we all deserve to be miserable. I really want, desperately want, the ability to give someone the evil eye and whisk their noggins. Or rather, just develop the ability to force people to confront how awful they are. Because I think one of the reasons we are so deserving of punishment as a species is you can't try to make things better if you refuse even to acknowledge the possibility there might be something wrong with you. And people who feel justified in themselves morally are so quick to do to other people what they would hate having done to them. What they would feel like, try to make themselves out to be like victims for having been done to them. I hate them. Not one of us deserves better. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.